They tell you not to cry, not because it would ruin the paint on your cheeks or because it might drop your price, but because no man bids on a girl who already looks broken. You're barefoot on a crate in the center of town, ankles tied with ribbon, dressed so tight you can barely breathe. They stitched it too high at the collar and too short at the hem. You can feel every eye on your calves, every whisper. And still, your father stands behind you, hand on your shoulder like he's proud. The sun is hot enough to press memory out of your bones, but you remember. You remember the last time he called you by your name. You were 7. You brought him water. He didn't thank you then either. Someone calls out a number, low, like they want to test the crowd. A few chuckles, a pause, then a higher bid, then 2. The banker's son is here, slick hair, too many teeth. You heard them talking last night about land, not love, about dowries, not daughters. The auctioneer waves his hand. Let's not be shy, gentlemen. She's got all her teeth and the Morgan coloring. That alone's worth the price of a good rifle. More laughter. You scan the crowd, and that's when you see him, not laughing, not bidding, not wearing town clothes. He's too tall to disappear, but somehow he already has. A Lakota man standing beneath the cottonwood tree, bare-chested beneath a hide vest. No weapon visible, but you don't doubt he carries one. No expression, just eyes that pin you like a hawk to a branch. Then he mouths something, not in English, not loud, but you hear it, you feel it. She's already spoken for. No one else reacts, but your pulse kicks hard because something in that whisper sounds like truth. The next bid is high, too high, and final. The banker's son steps forward, holds out a hand like this is a church ceremony, and not a sale. You flinch. But you take it, because that's what's expected, because your father nods like it's already done, because no one says your name, not even you. That night, you're put in a wagon, alone. The dress itches, the ribbon's gone, your throat burns from not screaming. They gave you a paper to sign. You didn't read it. The stars look different here, closer. You lie down, close your eyes, and see the Lakota man's mouth move again. She's already spoken for. You fall asleep trying to remember what that could possibly mean. The dream is sharp. You're standing at a river's edge. There's a blanket on your shoulders, woven red and black, warm and wet all at once. A woman's voice behind you says your name, but it's not the one you answer to. She says, "Keep the stitching tight. The thread remembers." You turn, but the voice is gone. Only the water remains, and the wind, and the sound of hooves behind you. You wake before they reach you. You wake to movement. The wagon has stopped. The canvas above you glows faint with morning. Dust hangs in the light like ash. You sit up, throat dry, wrists still sore from where they tied the ribbon too tight. The banker's son is gone. So is the driver. You peek through the flap. Nothing, not even birds. Just the long stretch of prairie and a heat line rising from the road. You step down barefoot, dress hem heavy with sleep and dust. The air smells like sage and old regret. Then you see him, leaning against the rear wheel, the Lakota warrior, same vest, same silence. But this time he speaks. You weren't meant for that man. His English is steady, clipped, each word shaped like it was chosen from a drawer. You don't answer right away. Then, "You followed me?" He tilts his head. "No, I followed the lie." You take a step back. "What do you want?" He doesn't move, doesn't reach for anything, just says, "To return what was stolen." You narrow your eyes. "I wasn't stolen, I was—" You stop, Because even your tongue won't finish the lie. Sold. That's what you were, not taken, just priced. He walks toward you, slow, unthreatening, stops an arm's length away, then reaches into a pouch at his side. You brace, but all he pulls out is cloth, a shawl, folded, thick, worn at the seams, red and black, just like the one from your dream. He holds it out. You don't move. Take it, he says. You'll need it before the second sun. You don't know what that means, but your hand moves anyway. The fabric is heavier than it looks, smells faintly of smoke and rose oil. I don't understand, you whisper. You don't have to. He turns, walks into the trees without another word, leaves you with the shawl, and a silence that sounds like the end of something you never began. When the banker's son returns, he doesn't mention the Lakota, doesn't seem to have seen him, just mutters something about the driver getting lost and wanting to push on. You ride without speaking. The shawl stays bundled at your feet, but your fingers don't leave it, and all day you feel the whisper repeating in your ribs to return what was stolen. That night, when you stop by the river, you unroll the shawl again, and on the inside seam, stitched in dark thread nearly worn to nothing, you see a name. Not yours, but familiar. Enough to make your stomach tighten. You trace the letters in the moonlight. Elena. You've heard that name before, long ago, when you were a child, sick, feverish. Your mother sitting beside your bed humming a song that didn't come from any hymnal. You asked her what the words meant. She said, "That was a name I gave away." You thought it was nonsense, a dream, but it wasn't. You looked down at the shawl in your lap, fold it again. And suddenly, nothing about this journey feels straight. The next morning, the banker's son wakes before you and whistles while he pisses against a mesquite tree. You sit up slowly, the shawl still bundled beneath your head. He calls you pretty thing without turning around. You don't answer. Not because you're afraid, but because you're tired of pretending that name belongs to you. He doesn't notice or doesn't care, just straps his saddle tighter and says, 2 more days, then the preacher signs it all up. My father already cleared it with yours. You say nothing. He takes that as agreement. The trail south curves wide around a dry canyon, then cuts through a patch of cottonwoods so quiet it feels like walking through a held breath. That's when the whisper returns, not from a voice this time, from the air itself. Something shifts. A bird startles, wind slants. You tighten the shawl around your shoulders even though it's hot. You don't look behind you, but you know he's there. Not watching you, watching him. At camp that night, the banker's son gets drunk on the last of his sweet whiskey and tries to kiss you without asking. You pull away. He laughs. You'll get used to it. You step back farther. I won't. He frowns like you're the one being unreasonable, then shrugs. Doesn't matter. You were promised. That word sticks. Promised. It echoes down your spine like a song you forgot the second verse to. He walks off, stumbles toward the fire, boots dragging. You retreat to the edge of the trees, hold the shawl close, and wait. The Lakota appears just after the moon rises, not from the trees, but from behind a boulder you never noticed before. You don't flinch. He sits on a flat rock and doesn't look at you, then says, he'll touch you before you reach the preacher. You clench your jaw. What do you care? He's quiet, a long time. Then, I knew your mother? You freeze. He stands, walks to the edge of the firelight. You weren't promised to that man. You whisper, then who was I promised to? He looks at you, but doesn't answer. He just steps back into shadow and leaves the question burning in the dirt beside your bare feet. You don't sleep, not really. You lie beneath the wagon, the shawl wrapped tight around you, heart ticking too loud to rest. The banker's son snores nearby, one boot still on, one hand curled around the bottle he refused to share. The sky above is thin and starless. The fire died hours ago, but you feel warmer than you should, like something unseen has crouched beside you, holding the cold back or daring it closer. In the gray before dawn, you open the shawl all the way for the first time. The inside isn't just fabric, it's a story. Tiny stitches, no wider than a pine needle, wind in long spirals across the lining. They form a pattern, roses and horses, yes, but layered over something older. Beneath the rose petals, you see quill work, Sioux designs, circles inside circles, 3 narrow feathers, a cradle board, and one single broken arrow stitched upside down. You trace it with your thumb. You've seen that symbol before, years ago, sewn into the hem of a dress your mother wore only once. You'd asked her about it, and she said, "Some symbols mean survival, others mean sacrifice." You hadn't understood then. You do now. You tuck the shawl away as the sun rises. And when the banker's son offers you a strip of jerky and a wink, you take it with still hands, because now you're watching him through a different frame, not as a buyer, not even as a threat, but as someone who stepped into a story he doesn't understand, and never will. The road narrows near the next bend, and the heat climbs fast. Your lips crack, your feet blister. He offers to let you ride. You decline. He says, "Suit yourself." You walk faster. That evening, while he sets camp and drinks again, you slip away to the river. The water is low but moving. You kneel, wash your face, wash your hands. Then, quietly, you press the shawl into the current, just enough to dampen it, to wake whatever memory still clings to the thread. It bleeds color, not enough to ruin it, just enough to prove it's alive. When you lift it again, the edge clings to your wrist like it doesn't want to leave. Behind you, a branch snaps. You turn slowly. It's him, not the banker, the warrior. He doesn't approach, just stands at the tree line. You ask, "Did you love her?" He tilts his head. "Do you mean your mother?" You nod. He doesn't answer. Instead, he says, "She left this with my sister. She said one day when her daughter began to forget who she wasn't, to give it back." You clutch the shawl. "It's mine now." "No," he says, it was always yours. You just didn't know what it meant." When you return to camp, the banker's son is asleep, mouth open, arms sprawled. You look at him like he's already gone, because in your mind he is. The only question left is how much of you he gets to take with him before you go. The preacher is 2 days south, tucked into a bend of the Missouri where the wind smells like fish guts and cotton bloom. That's where the banker's son says your name will be changed, where the contract will be finalized, where everything about who you are becomes ink on paper. He says this with a file like it's a kindness, like your future being folded and notarized is a form of mercy. You don't answer, because you've stopped giving your voice to things that don't deserve it. The next morning he hands you a saddlebag and tells you to carry it. You take it because it's easier than fighting. It's heavier than it should be. That evening, when he's drunk again and the fire burns low, you open it behind a mesquite bush. Inside, ledgers, land deeds. A tin box filled with silver buttons, and a folder marked with your family's brand, Bar M, pressed in wax. You've seen it before, on the barn wall, on your mother's boots, your breath catches. You unfold the paper slowly. There's a birth certificate. It says, Elena Morgan. Mother, unknown. Father, Randall Morgan. The signature looks wrong, not shaky. Too clean. You flip the page. There's a second document. This one, older, water-stained. Written in Lakota, but near the bottom, in the margin, is a name in English, Clara. And beside it, in your mother's hand, you'd know that writing anywhere, are the words, "She is not his to give." You sit there in the dark for a long time. The stars blink overhead like they're holding their breath. You hold the folder like it might burn through your fingers. Then you put it back, all of it, and walk to the river alone. The water runs faster here, sharper. You kneel, clutch the shawl, and dip your fingers in. Then you speak, not to God, not to the warrior, not even to your mother. You speak to the water. Who am I really? The river says nothing. But it doesn't pull away either. You let that be your answer. You return to camp and lie beside the wagon, not sleeping, just watching. At some point the banker's son rolls over and mumbles, "You'll thank me someday." You whisper, "You'll forget me long before I forget what you tried to take." He doesn't hear you, but the stars do, and so does something in the trees, because when you close your eyes, you dream again of a cradle woven from river grass floating just out of reach, and a woman on the bank sewing something into the lining. You ask what it is. She answers, the real name. You wake up crying, but don't remember why. The day grows thick with heat and horseflies. You walk beside the wagon again, by choice now, not because you're told. Your feet ache, your throat's raw from dust, but you'd rather feel that than feel him close. He rides ahead, humming some tune too smug for the trail. Says it's an old settler's drinking song. Says it'll be the last thing you hear as a single woman. You don't respond. Because every time he opens his mouth, the voice of someone else echoes behind him. She is not his to give. At noon he breaks to water the horses, disappears for a while, says something about trout in the creek ahead, leaves his bag by the fire. You don't touch it. You've seen enough. You're not looking for more answers, only a way through. That's when you feel it again, not seen, felt. A presence, a breath, just beyond the bend in the trail. You turn slowly, and there he is. The Lakota man, sitting on a low stone, carving something into bone. His knife glints once in the sun. He doesn't speak. You walk toward him like it's the only path left. When you reach him, he doesn't look up, just finishes the line he's carving, then says, "I knew you'd come." You don't ask how. You just sit cross-legged in the grass, shawl wrapped tight. He hands you the bone. A pendant, unfinished, 2 interwoven feathers, tips touching at the center. "I've seen this before," you whisper. He nods. Your mother wore it until the day she crossed the river. Your throat tightens. She gave you to them not to abandon you, he says, but to protect you. You close your hand around the carving. You knew who I was from the start, yes. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wasn't sure you knew. You sit in silence, the kind that speaks more than questions ever could. Then he says, "I was her brother." You freeze. Look at him again, his face softer now, more familiar. She named you before she left. Elena, not Clara. That name was given to hide you. You whisper, "I'm her daughter." "You always were." He places the knife beside you. "You can finish it or you can break it. That's your choice." Back at camp, the banker's son never asks where you were. He doesn't notice the pendant, only comments on how your hair looks better braided. You smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes. That night, when he lays his bedroll too close, you say nothing. He doesn't touch you, not because he's kind, but because you're not the same girl he bought. Later, you wake to a sound in the dark. Not footsteps, a whisper, your name, your real name. You sit up, pendant pressed to your chest. And no, he hasn't left, not yet. Because something unfinished still ties him to you. The preacher's town comes into view just after dawn. It's not much, 3 buildings and a whitewashed steeple with chipped paint and a bell that hasn't rung in years. A horse trough, a single street, the kind of place people come to disappear or make their lies look official. The banker's son rubs his hands like he's arriving at a feast. "You'll like him," he says. The preacher, good man, doesn't ask questions, just signs papers. You don't answer. You're thinking about the pendant in your pocket, the one you haven't worn, not yet, because you're still deciding whether to carry your name or become it. They put you up in a small room behind the saloon. 1 bed, 1 mirror, 1 cracked window looking out toward the chapel. The banker's son disappears to fetch the preacher. You sit on the bed, shawl over your knees, and finally take out the pendant. You finish it. Use the knife he gave you. Carve the last arc into the second feather. When it's done, you hold it to the light and whisper, "Mama." That's when you see the letter, not folded, not sealed, just left under the mattress. Your fingers tremble as you pull it free. The paper's soft from age, smudged at the corners, but the handwriting is unmistakable. Yours, not now, before. When you were 10, scrawled across a page torn from your mother's journal. You read it. "I think my name is wrong. Sometimes when I dream, I hear another one, and I think it means something good. I want to know who gave it to me." At the bottom, in different ink. She did, and one day you will remember how to wear it. E. You don't cry. You just press the letter to your heart and feel something shift, not break. Uncover. The banker's son knocks. Time. You follow him to the chapel. The preacher is already inside, older than expected, eyes tired. He doesn't look at you when he speaks, just says, "Names?" You open your mouth, but before you speak, you reach into your shawl, pull out the pendant, place it on the preacher's table. "This was hers," you say. "The woman who named me." The preacher glances at it, then at you, something sharp in his gaze now. The banker's son shifts beside you. "What is this?" he huffs. You ignore him. "My name is Elina." "Clara," the banker starts. You turn to him. "No, not anymore. Maybe not ever." The preacher leans forward. "Do you want this man?" You pause, then, "No." Silence, then louder, "No, I do not." The banker's son starts to laugh, but it's brittle. Too late for cold feet. You look at the preacher and ask, "Is a name enough to end a sale?" He nods once. "In this chapel, yes." The banker steps forward. "You can't." The preacher stands, tall and older than he first seemed. "I can, and I will." You leave the chapel alone, the pendant in your fist, the letter in your boot. You don't look back, because you're not leaving something behind, you're stepping toward something. Finally. You don't make it far before you hear his voice again, not the preacher, not the banker's son. His. The Lakota warrior stands just beyond the fence, beneath the shade of a half-dead mesquite tree. 1 foot on the rail, arms crossed like he's been waiting all morning. You stop. He nods once. I heard you remembered. You hold up the pendant. I didn't remember. I chose. He steps closer. You chose the name. I chose me. For a long time, neither of you moves. Then you ask, what else haven't you told me? He reaches into his vest, pulls out a strip of hide, rolled, tied with sinew. He hands it to you. Oh. You unroll it slowly. Inside, 2 things. A pressed red feather and a page, handwritten, in your mother's voice. You read it in silence. Alina, if this reaches you, it means he kept his word. I could not keep you safe the way I wanted, but I made a bargain. Blood for freedom. They said your name would be Clara. But Alina is the one I sang when you were inside me. That's the one sewn into the shawl. If the man who carries this gives it to you, trust him. His silence is not absence. It is mourning. Your mother in all ways that matter. Your hands shake. You don't realize you're crying until he steps forward, catches 1 tear on his thumb. You made a promise, you whisper. He nods. I did. What was it? That I would return you to yourself. You clutch the page to your chest. Why now? He doesn't answer with words, just steps back and gestures to the saddle waiting behind him. A second horse, already prepared, not forced, not demanded, offered. You mount, not quickly, not in ceremony, but with certainty, the kind that settles into your spine and says forward. He rides beside you in silence until the town disappears behind a ridge. Then he says, your mother sang that name until her last breath. You swallow hard. What was she like? He smiles. Like you. You camp by a creek that night. He cooks. You watch the fire. The sky is heavy with stars and questions you no longer fear. Before sleep, he offers you the feather, not to hold, to wear. You tuck it into your braid and feel something anchor, something open. You sleep dreamless for the first time in years. You wake to the sound of fabric flapping in the wind. The warrior is already up, kneeling beside the fire, turning a pot of corn mash with the kind of patience only grief can teach. Across the clearing, something hangs between 2 trees, a quilt. You rise, brush pine needles from your skirt, and approach it slowly. It's not the shawl. This is older, heavier, hand-stitched. Half Lakota, half settler. Each panel tells a different truth. You run your fingers across the borders, rose patterns along one side, horse tracks across the other. In the center, a broken circle stitched in silver thread, one side dark, one side pale. Whose was this, you ask? He doesn't look up. Ours. You stop. I don't understand. My mother stitched half. Your mother stitched the other. They made it the winter they hid in the canyon together. You turn back to the quilt. The rose thread is identical to the shawl, and near the bottom corner you see initials, not yours, but ones you now claim. E.M. Alina Morgan, you whisper. He nods. Your mother stitched your name before you were born. He stands, walks over, and touches the place where the rose pattern meets the horse tracks. They made a pact. When your mother returned to the rancher, she left the quilt behind, said it wasn't safe to carry a truth so loud. You swallow. So she gave me the shawl instead. A fragment of time, he says. A quieter story. You step back, arms crossed tight. All this time, I thought I was someone else's girl. He meets your eyes. You were never his. You were never sold, only hidden. You sit by the fire, tracing your thumb over the feather in your braid. He lays the quilt over your shoulders, not like a blanket, like a name. You wear it until the wind dies, until the morning breaks open, like a letter you're finally ready to read. Later that day, you enter a village just beyond the hills, small, circular. Women glance up from their baskets, nodding at the warrior. Children pause mid-play. An elder woman steps forward, her eyes narrow, then soften. "Elena," she says. The name doesn't startle you. You nod. She embraces you and whispers, "She would be proud. You've walked both stories home." That night you sleep beneath the quilt, not for warmth, but because you finally believe the thread. You feel the change before you see it. Bird song cut short. Smoke drifts down from the northern ridge, thin at first, then darker. The village elder stands from her basket weaving and turns slowly, eyes narrowed. "Someone's coming," she says. You already know who. The banker's son never could let a thing go if he thought he'd paid for it. By sundown, the smoke thickens. A rider approaches first, then two more, not tribal, not family. Settlers, wearing vests with silver buttons and guns on their hips that don't belong to peace. They stop just beyond the edge of the village. Dismount. The banker's son steps forward, dust in his teeth. "Well, well," he says, "you ran. That wasn't part of the deal." You step out from behind the elder's lodge. No shawl, no bonnet, just the feather still braided into your hair and the quilt draped across your shoulders. "I didn't run," you say. "I left." He smirks. "Makes no difference to me. The preacher didn't finish the papers, but I did. You're still bound." He pulls a folded sheet from his coat. "Filed this in BlackRock, paid double, got your name and your land." Your stomach turns. The land. He wasn't after you. He was after what came with you. The warrior steps forward then. No war paint, no weapon drawn, just the carved pendant swinging from his neck. "She isn't yours," he says. "She was sold," the banker snaps, "by a man who never owned her." You step between them, hold up the shawl, the letters, the quilt. "The stories are older than your paperwork," you say, "and stronger." He shrugs. "Maybe." Then he whistles. And more riders appear, 6 in total now. Guns, axes, cold eyes, too many. The elder woman pulls you back. "Get inside." But you stay, because hiding would be giving up the name you just reclaimed. The warrior's hand drifts to his belt. The banker laughs. "Go ahead, start it. Let's see how many names your people lose this time." You turn to the elder. "What do we do?" She smiles. "You speak." You swallow, step forward again, and raise your voice. "This land was held by the Lakota before it was taken. I was held by my name before it was stripped. We are not objects. We are not for sale." She nods behind you. And from the edge of the hills, more shapes appear. Women, men, not armed with guns, but with presence. Witnesses, a community. The banker looks uncertain now, flicks his eyes to his men. They shift. They didn't ride in for a war. They rode in for a purchase. You speak one more word, not to him, to the wind. "Go!" He stares, but doesn't fight, just mounts his horse with a curse and a sneer. "You'll regret this," he says. "No," you reply, "I regret ever thinking I was his." When they ride off, the elder takes your hand. "Fire came," she says, "but didn't burn." You nod and let the quilt fall for the first time, not because it's too heavy, because now you can carry what's beneath it. At dusk he finds you alone, sitting by the river that cuts behind the village. Your feet are in the water. The quilt is beside you, not around you. You're not shivering, you're thinking. When he approaches, he doesn't speak, just sits on the opposite bank. You stare at the current between you, then say, "You knew this wasn't going to be easy." He nods. "I hoped it would be yours." You raise an eyebrow. "This life?" He shakes his head. "No, the choice." The water babbles between your silences. The first stars appear, quiet and small. He finally says, "I can take you back." You look at him. The town? No, to a fort if you want. A new name, a clean start. There are places that would accept a woman like you with a whisper of blood and a stronger voice. You don't answer, because you understand now he's not trying to keep you, he's giving you back. But this time, not to any man or land or paper. To yourself. You ask, "What happens if I stay?" He looks up. "I keep walking beside you, if you let me." He doesn't offer love, he doesn't speak of marriage, but he offers presence, and that, out here, means more than vows. You take a breath, the kind that's made of fire and dust and choice. Then you rise, cross the river barefoot, water cold around your knees. When you reach him, he doesn't reach back. You place your hand in his, he closes around it, not tightly, gently, like he knows you could still walk away. And that would be enough. Later that night, by the fire, you speak softly. "My mother named me for a bird." He smiles. "Elena, the swallow. She thought I'd migrate." "You did," he says, "but you came back." You rest your head on his shoulder and close your eyes. You don't say anything more, because for the first time in your life, you don't have to explain why you stayed. The morning mist hangs low over the village. You rise before the fire's lit, before the children's voices, before the sun cuts through the trees. Your hair is damp with dew. The pendant rests against your collarbone like a heartbeat. Today feels like a day that might need courage, and you're learning how to wear it. You and the warrior walk the perimeter together. The earth smells like last night's rain and old ash. He says nothing, but when he walks, his hand brushes yours often enough to remind you that you are not alone, until the shot cracks the silence. One sharp, flat sound, you both freeze. Then move, fast. At the edge of the ridge, a rider lies slumped in the dirt. Blood darkens his shoulder. A rifle still warm at his side. Not one of yours, one of theirs, one of the banker's men. Another attempt, another warning, or maybe just revenge. You kneel beside him. He's alive, barely, whispering a name, not his own. "Clara," he mutters. You flinch, because that name isn't yours anymore, but you know it still lives in someone's mouth. The warrior lifts the man gently, carries him to the healer's tent. You watch the blood soak into the canvas floor. You whisper, "Why use that name?" He answers, without looking up, "Because it's the one they branded you with." And now? He ties off the wound. He'll learn your real one. You gather the elders that evening. Ask for a circle, not because you want drama, but because you want witnesses. You hold up the pendant, the quilt, the letters. You say, "My name was once Clara. It was sold, signed, buried." You pause. Then, "I am Elina. I carry the stories of two mothers, one who birthed me, one who burned for me. I walk in both names, but I live in this one." The silence that follows is full of breath. And then, the elder woman steps forward, places a strand of red beads in your hand. For Alina, she says, who turned a sail into a circle. Later, the warrior finds you by the fire, kneels beside you, whispers, "They'll come again." You nod. "I know. But this time, we'll be ready." You rest your head against his. "I'm not afraid," you say. He replies, "You never were." You smile. "Then why did I tremble?" "Because becoming someone always shakes the bones." The wind shifts, carries the scent of crushed sage and something older, like dust warmed by truth. You walk the perimeter again, not to patrol, just to breathe. The pendant taps lightly against your chest with each step, a steady reminder that you're still learning how to live in this name. The elder finds you sitting beneath the prayer tree. She lowers herself beside you with the same patience she uses to braid her hair each morning. "I knew your mother," she says. You don't speak? You wait. She was quiet at first, not because she had nothing to say, because she'd said it all before and no one had listened. You nod. That feels familiar. She came to us after the winter raids, pregnant, alone, carried nothing but a shawl and a broken wrist. You flinch. "I remember that," you say. "She always said her right hand never worked the same." The elder continues, "She stayed 2 seasons, spoke Lakota by the 3rd moon, sang like she was trying to keep the stars from falling." You look at her. Was she happy? She was alive. You nod. That's more than most get. Then the elder says the part you didn't know you needed to hear. She loved him. You turn. "My father?" She smiles. "No." Then she touches your shoulder. Your real father. The warrior steps into view from behind the tree line. He's not surprised. Neither are you. He stands still, silent. Then says, "I didn't speak it before, because love, once broken, has to ask before it returns." You walk toward him. Why now? He places something in your palm, a ring, wooden, smoothed by years of being carried, not worn. "She carved it before she left, told me to give it to our daughter only if she came back for her own name." Your breath catches. It's light, worn, strong, like her, like you. That night, you sit beside him near the fire. You don't ask for more stories. You just hold the ring, slip it over your finger, not because it fits, because it belongs. You rest your head against his shoulder and whisper, "She never told me." He answers, "She didn't have to." You close your eyes and let the silence fill in what history never could. You find the crate behind the smokehouse, half broken. Dry rot eating one side, nails rusted to copper, the same crate they made you stand on, barefoot, ribboned, priced. You drag it out with your own hands, set it in the center of the clearing. People gather without being called. The elder steps forward and touches the wood once, then nods. You kneel beside it, inside the preacher's folder, the banker's forged deed, the boots you wore on auction day, the ribbon still stained with summer sweat, and the shawl. You hesitate. But only a moment. Then fold it gently, place it on top. Your name isn't in the fabric anymore, it's in your breath. He lights the flame, not with ceremony, with flint, spark, ash. The fire climbs fast, smokes sweet. A breeze catches the edge of the ribbon and lifts it once, just once before it vanishes. You don't cry, you don't bow. You just watch it burn like a page you no longer need to reread. Afterward, he brings you a tin bowl of water. You dip your hands, wash off the smoke, and ask, "What do I do now?" He says what you always meant to. You look down at your hands, at the scars, the ink from papers long gone. The thread burns where you held the shawl. But your palms are open and clean. That night you walk the ridge alone, look out across the trees. Somewhere a hawk screams. You smile and answer it. One high note, then two short bursts. The old call, the one you never learned, but always knew. In the morning you kneel beside the fire pit, rake the ash, dig the blackened earth, place a single seed, just one. Then rise and walk away, without waiting to see what grows, because this time you know it will. The sun's barely up when you saddle the mare. No one stops you. They just watch, quiet, open-palmed, knowing you're not leaving. You're arriving. You don't wear boots, not because you forgot, because it matters. Your feet grip the stirrups raw, the way your mother once told you. The earth teaches balance through pain. The quilt is folded behind you. The pendant is tied around your neck. And the ring. The ring is still warm from the firelight it slept beside. He doesn't ride with you at first. He waits, stands beneath the prayer tree, arms crossed, like a man who's seen too many farewells to assume anything. You ride past him slow, then pause, look back, lift one hand, not a wave, an offer, and he mounts. No words, just hooves and dust and something softer between. You don't talk until noon. Then he says, "Where?" You say, "West." He nods. West is good. You camp by a creek with red clay banks. Wash your hands again, not to forget. To remember differently, he builds a fire. You hang the quilt between two branches. It ripples, like a story told through smoke. That night he lays beside you, not close enough to touch, but close enough for the silence to hum between you like a prayer. You wake before dawn. The stars are fading. The wind smells like change. You braid your hair, weave the feather back in, and whisper to the fire, "She carried me as far as she could." Then you close your eyes, sighs, and add, "Now I carry her." He reaches for your hand. You let him. He doesn't squeeze, just holds it, steady. And in the quiet, before first light breaks, you know this is not a happy ending. It's a true one, and that's better, because names can change, but stories stay. And you are done being anyone else's chapter. You ride barefoot into the next name, not because you need to, but because you finally can.